So this is the top news story right now, right? They're accusing Russia of killing civilians, of committing war crimes in Bucha in Ukraine. This is from Reuters. Let me just give you a brief overview of the situation, and then we'll break it down as best as we can, right? So the United States and European countries pledged on Monday to punish Moscow over civilian killings in northern Ukraine, where a mass grave and tied bodies of people shot at close range were found in a town seized back from Russian forces. So the deaths in Bucha outside Kiev drew pledges of further sanctions against Moscow from the West, possibly including some restrictions on the billions of dollars in energy that Europe still imports from Russia, right? So you guys remember the US has banned Russian energy imports. The EU has not, because they depend on Russian gas. So Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, he's also visited the site of these atrocities or alleged atrocities, and he said that, quote, these are war crimes and will be recognized by the world as genocide. So very strong language. He's not holding back or mincing words. Now, Russia has denied any accusations, right, when it comes to murdering civilians, including in Bucha. And basically, they're saying that Ukraine has made this whole thing up. They're saying that it's a false flag. What I'm going to do, and again, I don't know how freely I can speak on here. I'm going to try and give you both sides of the story, and you make your own mind up. Okay, I think that's the objective. That's a fair thing to do. So, again, obviously, I'm not going to show you any of the pictures because they'll be flagged immediately. It's quite brutal. I don't think any of you want to actually, trust me, if you see that, you're going to wish I didn't show you. It's bad. It's very bad. Basically, they've been trying to prove that this happened by showing satellite imagery, right? So, again, like I said, Russia has come out and said this is not true, and what you've had is major outlets releasing satellite imagery like this to prove that it is actually true, because they're saying that if you can see the bodies by satellite, then obviously they're there. You can't fake that. So you're seeing things like this, right? These are in the white squares. These are supposed to be bodies, right? So this is published by the New York Times. The New York Times have posted this video, and you can see how on the left side they have like an actual first-person view of the street, and then on the right side, this is the satellite imagery. Okay, again, I'm not going to play all of it because they'll try and probably censor it, but you get the idea. Also, I don't know if I've been butchering the pronunciation of the town. I think it's actually Bucha, right? Which is aptly named for the crime, unfortunately. But in any case, they're adamant that this happened, right? Which is a bit interesting, because if you ask the Pentagon, this is from Reuters, the Pentagon says it can't independently verify or confirm atrocities in Ukraine's Bucha. So again, that's a bit conflicting to me, because the New York Times, Zelensky, they're saying it happened, and then the Pentagon is saying we don't know. It's a bit weird. You would assume that they're on the same page, right? So I don't know what that means. I'm not giving you a verdict on this. I'm just presenting to you all of the information, and we're gonna go through all of this bit by bit about what happened in Bucha, right? So the U.S. military is not in a position to independently confirm Ukrainian accounts of atrocities by Russian forces against civilians in the town of Bucha, but has no reason to dispute the accounts either, a senior U.S. defense official said on Monday. So they're saying, we're seeing the same imagery that you are. We have no reason whatsoever to refute the Ukrainian claims about these atrocities. Clearly, deeply, deeply troubling. The Pentagon cannot independently and single-handedly confirm that, but we're also not in any position to refute those claims. Now, the Russians, interestingly enough, they actually tried to convene an emergency a session at the United Nations Security Council about what's happened in Bucha, right? So you can see here the headline, Russia seeks UN Security Council meeting, and it was denied, weirdly enough, by the UK. So I've seen this on Twitter as well, right? So, but I'm just giving you the rundown here. So basically, the UK, because the UN Security Council has a rotating presidency every month. This month, the UK has that presidency. And they said no. They just didn't want to have a meeting, which is, I don't understand, because they're all united no pun intended, they're all united in condemning Russia for this. And then when Russia's trying to convene an emergency session to deal with it, they say no. I don't know why. I'll play you a video, though, of the British ambassador to the UN. Let's take a look at what she said, because now apparently they're saying, I think what they're doing is they wanted to stop Russia from convening the session so they could do it themselves on Tuesday, because that's what they're saying now. But again, just to be clear, Russia tried to convene an emergency session at the UN Security Council over Bucha, and the United Kingdom said no. Now again, here's the ambassador. Take a look at what she says.
We've all seen the harrowing images and reports from Bucha this weekend of unarmed Ukrainian civilians shot with their hands tied behind their backs, of more than 800 bodies left in the street or dumped in mass graves, of women being raped in front of their children. This month, the UK is president of the Security Council. We will call a council meeting tomorrow on Ukraine, including to discuss the mounting evidence of war crimes, including from Bucha. We'll use our president.
She said Bucha as well, so I don't know which one to I heard her say Bucha, so I assumed that was the right way. In any case,
to ensure there is transparency, accountability, and that justice is done.
So do you see the issue here? Do you see the issue here? The UK were like, no, we don't want Russia convening it. We're going to convene it. Honestly, I don't know what difference that's going to make. They're not ready. They're trying to prepare some kind of statement. I don't get it. Make of that what you will, obviously. Make of that what you will. I've seen pieces like this coming out and saying that, there's evidence that it's a lie because the mayor of Bucha announced on March 31st, he filmed like a selfie video. And on March 31st, he said the Russians have left the town. So basically, the Russian side are saying, how is it possible that Russian troops committed a massacre when Russian troops left 4 days ago? That doesn't make sense. Like, did nobody see these bodies that are laying on the street? Because there are so many of them, right? That's and yeah, there are bodies in the street. There's no question about it. Like, it's horrible. Honestly, like, regardless of who did it, like at the end of the day, these people were killed. That and it's very horrible. It's really heartbreaking. But this is the video in question. So again, I'm just showing you all sides of the story. You make your mind up. Here's the video that they're talking about with the mayor. Okay, so his name is Anatoly Fedoruk. Okay, and here's the video with English subtitles.
Друзі, шановна Бучанська громада, 31 березня віддав історію нашого населеного пункту всієї територіальної громади як день звільнення від російських орків, від російських окупантів нашими Збройними силами України, наших населених пунктів. Тож сьогодні констатую, що цей день є радісний і велика перемога наших Збройних сил на Київщині, і ми обов'язково з вами дочекаємося і будемо все робити для того, щоб велика перемога була по всій Україні. Слава нашим Збройним силам України, слава Україні, слава кожному українцю, незалежно від того, в якому куточку України він зараз знаходиться.
Okay, so that's the video that they're pointing to. And I mean, honestly, guys, I'm gonna repeat this regardless. No matter who is right, whether the West are telling the truth or the Russians are telling the truth, like at the end of the day, those people were killed. They're actual bodies in the street, and it's very, very, very horrific. It's horrible. I really hate that, and I'm very sad for Ukraine. I don't know, honestly, what the truth is. This is the problem. Do you see? Because when you have let me explain something. When you have a pattern of many years, many stories, where the Western press they lie and make things up. They don't just tell like tiny lies. They make astronomical lies. Enormous lies, like Iraq, like in Syria. This is, it's like the boy who cried wolf. They keep lying and lying and lying, and then when something real happens, you don't know. You don't know what to believe because they lie so much. And in the end, who are they hurting? Like, if this is actual genocide or let's say at the very least a war crime by the Russians, they've actually made sure that the victims are not, like people are not actually taking the victims seriously, which is horrible. And again, it goes without saying, if this is actually true, then, you know, Russia should be condemned. But the problem is, they lie so much in the Western press, you don't know what to believe. I'm just going to tell you, because in Syria, man, in Syria, look how many things they lied about. Like, forget Iraq, leave Iraq aside, right? In Syria, they made up things like this a lot of the times, right? They said things like, oh, there's been this massacre committed here. There's been a chemical attack, you know, whatever it was, whether it's conventional weapons or chemical weapons, they would make up things like this to try and pin it on the government. You know, the idea is like, let's create a red line. And then we will prove that the government crossed this red line so we can justify XYZ, whatever it is, sanctions, a bombing campaign. It doesn't matter. It's to achieve a foreign policy objective, right? So you don't know what they're doing here. You know, these maniacs are begging for World War III in the media. I mean, to the point that even the Pentagon is like the voice of reason now. Seriously, like the neoconservatives, the neoliberals are so far off that you have generals in the Pentagon who are like, you people are crazy. You know, we do not want World War III. We're not going to start this. If we engage with the Russians, there's going to be, you know, a nuclear winter coming to us all. So my point is that they've done this stuff before in Syria, and they've used it to justify more bombings. They've used it to attack Syria, to attack the Syrian government. I think this is it's very disingenuous, because they do a disservice to the victims. Because again, if this is real, like what they're saying is it's actually happened, like the Russians did this stuff. Think of how insulting that is to the victims, because they basically made sure that people are doubting it because of the past track record they have of you know, just lying. And the thing is that they've already decided that anything the Russians say is fake. So again, I don't know how well that bodes, you know, when you hold it up to scrutiny. I think the best thing to do is have an independent investigation, not the Russians, not the Ukrainians, you know, not the British or the Americans. It should be truly independent, and you should send scientists, not journalists, not politicians, you know, because this work is forensic. You know, of course, journalists can only do so much. You need scientists to do this. There has to be an independent investigation. That's clear, man, because those scenes are horrible. They're horrible. And the only way to get a real answer is by sending a team of independent independent scientists to do the forensics. And then, of course, the question is, what's independent? You look at Syria, you know, with the scientists that they sent to Duma, you know, they didn't like their results, and they just, I don't want to go into that whole story. And I'm so sick of it talking about it. I feel so repetitive. But you understand my point. Like, I think that's the bare minimum. A lot of people have been saying also, again, this is just people online, they've been saying it's the Azov battalion, because you have Azov that are in the same place, in Bucha or Bucha, I don't know how you want to pronounce it. We've also seen in Mariupol that Azov battalion, they used Ukrainians as human shields. Again, that doesn't imply that they did this, but people are saying that, well, they have a history of using their own countrymen as, you know, basically human shields, cannon fodder, as bait. So this is the problem with when you have so much propaganda from every side. I mean, and mostly, of course, from the Western press. I think we should, you know, we have to give credit where credit is due, and I mean that sarcastically, of course. This is really bad. And another aspect that I wanted to tackle about this story is, you know, you've seen the emergence of you know, basically in the Western media, they're talking about this like this is the first war crime that ever happened. And again, I'm not trying to minimize the stuff. I'm telling you, it's horrible. But you're seeing stuff like this, okay? So you got this guy over here who's saying that no cities during the Iraq invasion were ever made to look like Mariupol, Bucha, or other heavily damaged places in Ukraine. I get so angry with this. I feel like I shouldn't be even addressing this. This is so ridiculous. That's a complete bloody lie. Again, the Russians, as much as, you know, you want to criticize them, go ahead. they look like choir boys compared to what the British and the Americans did in Iraq. Do you understand the comparison, the analogy? The Americans and the British destroyed Iraq so badly that if in comparison the Russians look like choir boys, doesn't mean they are choir boys, but it's hyperbole. So that's number one. And do you see how they're trying to like minimize it by saying during the invasion? Like, they're so sneaky. It's like, well, they know that throughout, the occupation that's still going on to this day, like 20 years later, 19 years later, that they ruined Iraq so bad that now they're like, yeah, it's during the invasion. It's just like the first 30 days. Even that is a lie. That's also a lie. I mean, just look at the pictures, man. I got so angry at this. Look at the pictures. This is the shock and awe. They literally called it that. Do you see how they were bombing? Do you see how they were bombing Baghdad? They were live streaming it on TV. I remember this. I'm not kidding, man. They were broadcasting this live on television. They had like cameras set up in Iraq and Baghdad to capture the bombs. And they called it shock and awe. Like just by the name, it was like so aggressive and evil, just straight up evil. And again, they killed so many civilians during the so-called invasion, right? If you want to consider that March 19th, so that's the picture I just showed you, the bombings, and then the next day the ground invasion. So March 20th, March 19th, and then that's of course a couple of weeks until they take Baghdad, right? They take the capital, and so even in that period, they ravaged Iraq. So even if you just want to look at the invasion, it's a lie. And like, dude, do I have to show you pictures of this stuff? Look at this. This is, again, just to show you, I'm not doing these comparisons. Liberals who are trying to, like make you believe so badly that Russia's like the most evil thing that's ever existed, they are the ones who are not only pushing this anti-Russian propaganda, but they're also trying to whitewash their own crimes, right? This is like neoconservatives with Trump, right? So they thought that, if we jump in with the Democrats and we attack Trump, people will forget about what we did. It's the same thing here. So if we jump in and we all attack Putin, people are going to forget what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan and so on. So I want to show you a picture. This is from Fallujah. Honestly, this picture is like meaningless by itself. It's like, I could literally show you hundreds and hundreds of these pictures, and you still would not understand the level of devastation in Fallujah. Here's Mosul, another Iraqi city. I mean, this is like World War II level of destruction. Literally, there is no difference between this and the Hamburg in 1945. There's no difference. That's exactly what it looks like. It looks like World War II, World War II level of destruction in German cities, right? Because the British would bomb during the night and the Americans during the day. And the whole idea was, let's carpet bomb these German cities, and that's what they look like, and that's what Mosul looks like. This was the United States liberating Mosul from ISIS, which again is like, you created ISIS. What do you mean you're liberating it from ISIS? That's their idea of fighting terrorism, right? And then when the Russians do it and the Syrians do it, you don't have to agree with them, but look at the hypocrisy. When the Russians and the Syrians do this stuff to fight terrorism, they're like, oh, you're bombing hospitals and you're indiscriminately bombing. What the fuck is this? Look at that. What is that? That wasn't the Russians. That was the Americans. In any case, you cannot look at Iraq like, oh, it was just like 2003. Are you high? Are you high? Iraq is the invasion and it's everything afterwards. It's the so-called sectarian violence. I hate that term so much because they act like you had nothing but like, car bombs going off and mosques being blown up under Saddam. You don't have to like Saddam Hussein, but that stuff wasn't happening. That's the result of the invasion. So you got to count those victims as well. You brought Al-Qaeda. You, the British and Americans, brought Al-Qaeda to Iraq. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq ever, right? And then, of course, ISIS after that as well. So in total, that's like 1 million Iraqis killed as a direct result of the invasion. And millions of refugees and cities that look like this. And you have people like this guy who are trying to minimize what happened in Iraq and say like, oh yeah, Putin is like so evil. He's next level evil. He's literally Hitler. Even Iraq didn't look like this. No, man. Iraq looked 1 million times worse than this, and it still is. don't come with this apologist nonsense, you know, because they've all been doing it. A lot of people have been doing this, right? Trying to minimize what happened, and it's not going to work. We're not going to let them do that. We're not going to let them get away with this. I want to tell you another thing about Fallujah, because I was telling you that this picture over here, you know, it doesn't encapsulate really what happened there. Because, you know, you might be looking at it, you're saying, yeah, but it's just like a bunch of, you know, it's just material damage. It's much more than that. It's really, really much more than that. I want to tell you something, you know, when it comes to Fallujah, because there were several battles in this city in Iraq. I think there were 3 battles in total since the invasion. And so, just to give you an idea of what happened, they bombed that city so much. You know, Fallujah has a nickname. It's called the City of Mosques, because it has a beautiful skyline of mosques, literally hundreds of mosques. And during the second battle of Fallujah, the Americans damaged 60 of its 200 mosques, right? They destroyed 20% of all the buildings in Fallujah, 20%. And then on top of that, they used white phosphorus, which is a chemical weapon, and they used depleted uranium, because when you put depleted uranium in tank shells and other armor-piercing rounds, it improves the armor-piercing capability, which is also ridiculous because, they act like they had to do it because the Iraqis had like 50 million tanks. It's ridiculous. There was no need for that anyway. But my point is they use so many chemical weapons that today, in 2022, in Fallujah, like, they have the highest rate of birth defects in the world. It's even worse than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Again, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those are the 2 Japanese cities that the Americans dropped nuclear bombs on. Nuclear bombs. And Fallujah is worse. Like, that's how much depleted uranium and chemical weapons they use, that to this day, you have children, they're born with so many birth defects. So look at this, the birth defects, it's a rate of 14.7%, okay? So 15% basically. So that's more than 14 times what you had in the affected areas in Japan. Can you imagine? So, people, they had no idea about this. They already survived the war, and they went on living there, and meanwhile their DNA is being corrupted, and then their children are born with these horrific birth defects. There's actually an account on Twitter that documents this stuff. They post pictures of the babies. I can't show it to you because it's so bad. And again, this is like one city. This is one city, man. One city in Iraq. Like, we haven't even talked about the rest of Iraq. We haven't even talked about Syria and Libya and Somalia. Like, how on earth are you going to come here and act like, oh, this is the first war crime that's ever happened? Do you see, this is what's so infuriating, because you have media outlets like the New York Times who are like, they're so forensic, right? They're so ready to like dig deep and prove it was a war crime. Where was this during Iraq? Where was this during Syria? Like, all they do is further the NATO narrative. They only do real journalism when it suits their narrative. They don't do it when it doesn't suit the narrative. And so the governments also, you're seeing, I'm not kidding, man, this is absolutely unreal. So you're seeing now the United Kingdom, who are saying that, and the United States, who are saying that Putin is a war criminal, right? And they're saying that he should be tried for war crimes and all this stuff. Here's from The Guardian. You can see, Biden calls for Putin to face war crimes trial over civilian killings in Ukraine.
Criticized for calling Putin a war criminal. Well, the truth of the matter, you saw what happened in Bucha. This warrants him, he is a war criminal. But we have to gather the information. We have to continue to provide Ukraine with the weapons they need to continue the fight. And we have to gather all the detail so this can be have a war crime trial. This guy is brutal. And what's happening in Bucha is outrageous. And everyone's seen it. Up to Allah. No, I think it is a war crime.
But you don't, sir, are you going to do more sanctions on Russia?
I'm seeking more sanctions, yes. I'll have time to announce that to you.
Can you hold Putin accountable, though? You called him a war criminal.
He should be held accountable.
Without sanctions?
Well, no.
What else can you do?
No. Go the war crime trial. Yes, I'm going to continue to add sanctions. Thank you.
What is that? Like, dude, what do you mean you're talking about war crimes? Like, you literally started the war in Iraq. I don't know how many people forget this. Joe Biden was the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee when Bush was trying to start the war in Iraq. And he was basically George Bush's man in the Democratic Party. And he made sure he swung votes in the Senate. And when people came to testify, he made sure that, you had only people who were pro-war giving testimony in the Senate about Iraq. So he helped shape the public opinion about Iraq, about weapons of mass destruction. He was actually pushing for invading Iraq before Bush was even president. So, like, this guy talking about war crimes, I mean, that's amazing to me, right? It's amazing to me. Like, what? Dude, if Vladimir Putin has blood on his hands, what do you have on your hands? It really takes one to know one, right? You want to talk about war criminals. This is a joke. Again, I understand, like, when someone speaks the truth, if it's the truth, it's the truth. It doesn't matter out of whose mouth it came, right? But in this case, I want to show you something, because this is not just a moral double standard. It's a legal double standard, because he's saying that we should gather evidence, we meaning the Americans, they should gather evidence and to start a war crimes trial. Hold on a second. The United States is not even a member of the International Criminal Court. Where are you going to do this trial? You're not even a member. In what court are you going to do this? Where? Did you invent some secret court? I wouldn't be surprised. Now, what does that mean? Dude, the United States, in multiple administrations, they've refused to sign the Rome Statute. I think Bill Clinton, he put it off to his last day in office, and he signed it. But then it was handed over to Bush, and Bush refused to ratify it. And actually, they went further than that. They went further. Do you know what the Bush administration did? You can't make this stuff up. The United States passed a law in 2002 saying that they will invade the Netherlands. That's where you have the International Criminal Court in The Hague. They will invade the Netherlands if any U.S. Citizen or soldier is tried there for war crimes. I'm not making this up. This is called it's nicknamed the Hague Invasion Act, because that's literally what it is, right? So they don't actually say the word invade. They say using all means necessary, which is a nice American way of saying invade. That's what it means. Like, don't get it twisted, man. Don't play yourself. You know exactly what it means. This is the text. This is the actual bill, right? So it's called the American Service Members Protection Act. Again, I love how they have these like CIA ways of putting this, right? It's so funny, honestly. And so, again, they will use all means necessary and appropriate to bring about the release of any U.S. or allied personnel being detained or imprisoned by, on behalf of, or at the request of the International Criminal Court. So, again, not only does the United States refuse to be a party to this court, they're actually saying they will invade the bloody court if they try to prosecute anyone for war crimes. So, I mean, that's just they're openly showing their contempt for any sort of international justice, right? Now, the UK, which is also calling for, Putin to be like, they're calling for these tribunals. Like, I'm really wonder where are these tribunals going to happen? The UK is a member of the Rome Statute. Again, for the Rome Statute is the ICC. It was what created the International Criminal Court. It's the same thing. So the UK is a party to the Rome Statute, but get this. They added the crime of aggression to the Rome Statute. What does that mean? That crime of aggression means that, you attack a country for no reason. It's not self-defense. You just go and invade it because you have political goals or foreign policy goals, like the US attacked Iraq. That's exactly a crime of aggression, a textbook case of a crime of aggression. And so they added that to the International Criminal Court as a crime, as a war crime. And the UK refuses to ratify it. So they accept genocide, they accept, crimes against humanity, all these other things, but they don't accept a crime of aggression, which is very great. This is how you end up in a situation where, someone like Tony Blair, who literally helped invade Iraq, he cannot be prosecuted because the British haven't ratified it. So this is, again, from the High Court. This is what they said, right? They said, Tony Blair prosecution over Iraq war is blocked by judges. The High Court rules that there's no crime of aggression in English law under which the former prime minister could be charged. Great. So I hope you guys all learned something new today. Apparently, in England, it's not a crime to attack another country. Great. That's exactly what it means, right? That's exactly what this means. So you have two countries that are either not a member of the International Criminal Court or who refuse to actually ratify its crimes, into British law who are coming and saying they want to try Putin. You don't even abide by the standards of the ICC. You're not even a member. Yeah, this is so ridiculous. It's so utterly ridiculous. And of course, people they don't know this. Do you think the CNN or the New York Times or Fox News is going to tell you what I just told you? Just the last minute. Just the last minute. They will never tell you that. They don't give you this context, which shows you how bloody ridiculous and hypocritical all of this is. It doesn't mean you have to like Russia. It just means that you should open your damn eyes and see that these people are hypocrites. Not only in the fact that they're also war criminals and that they've committed, they have far more blood on their hands, but even legally speaking, they are hypocrites. They're literally trying to apply a legal double standard. This is incredible. It's honestly incredible. And so, of course, Russia is not a member of the ICC, and I openly and I vehemently criticize Russia for that. I think that's unacceptable. Russia, as a responsible country, if a member of the UN Security Council, a permanent member, it should be a party to the ICC. It must. There's there's no explanation. There's no reason for it not to be. I understand it's not a fair system, as you can see, but still, you can't say, oh, it's bad for the UK and the US that they're not in the ICC, but it's okay for Russia not to be. No, it's also bad when Russia doesn't do that. The thing is, Ukraine is also not a part of the ICC. It's not a party to the Rome Statute. And so the way this works is, for example, if Ukraine wants to go now to the ICC and complain about war crimes, usually they can't do that because they're not a member. Okay, so let's say in this case, right, in this hypothetical, Russia is the aggressor and Ukraine is the victim. It doesn't matter that Russia isn't a member of the International Criminal Court, because if the victim is a member, that's enough. You can take the aggressor to the ICC. You just need, the only thing that matters is that the ICC can establish jurisdiction on at least one of the parties, right? Now, in the case of Ukraine, even though they're not a member of the ICC, they have accepted jurisdiction. This is, again, early March, in the first week of March. So this is a statement from the ICC prosecutor, okay? And they said that they said, quote, "I've decided to proceed with opening an investigation." Okay, so Ukraine is not a state party to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, so cannot itself refer the situation to my office, but it has twice exercised its prerogatives to legally accept the court's jurisdiction over alleged crimes under the Rome Statute occurring on its territory, should the court choose to exercise it. So the first declaration was lodged regarding alleged crimes committed on Ukrainian territory from 21st of November 2013 till the following year, 22nd of February. And the second declaration extended this time period on an open-ended basis to encompass ongoing alleged crimes committed throughout the territory of Ukraine from 20th of February 2014 and onwards. So what does that mean? That means that technically, what happened today in Bucha, that could be included in this, as I just told you, as it clearly says. Because the Ukrainians have accepted the ICC to bring forward charges or open an investigation on the basis of alleged crimes committed after 20th of February 2014. So at the same time, that could also include the Azov battalion, right? This doesn't go one way. One thing that comes to mind is when, for example, last year, the ICC declared it has jurisdiction in Palestine, which, again, Palestine is not a member state because, they screwed the Palestinians. They won't even let them be a full member at the UN. But my point is that you had the Israelis screaming that, oh my God, this is anti-Semitic and the International Criminal Court is trying to attack the only Jewish state. That's a flat out lie, because the ICC saying we have jurisdiction in Palestine means that it can also investigate Palestinians. It literally says that the investigation is not just against the Israelis, it's also against Hamas and the PA. And again, I have to be very clear about something. The ICC does not investigate countries. You don't bring Russia or, the United States to the ICC. You bring leaders, individuals, people, right? That's how it works. And so, in this case, in this hypothetical, it would be Putin, or perhaps one of the generals, let's say, who was commanding this, the forces that committed this alleged crime in Bucha, for example, right? For Iraq, it would be Tony Blair, it would be George Bush. That's how it works. And, you know, honestly, on Twitter, you've seen Jeremy Corbyn, who used to be the Labour leader before they massacred him, you know, with these anti-Semitism smears. He actually tweeted something about this on Twitter. And I just want to show you something because people are they're so narrow-minded, honestly. They just don't understand how anything works. He was saying that the horrific discovery of mass graves in Bucha must be investigated and those responsible held accountable. There must be an urgent and immediate ceasefire in Ukraine to end the bloodshed that has already taken so many lives. And you have people, you know, they're attacking him. They're saying, oh, you're a Russian agent and you're working for the Kremlin. And how difficult is it for you to just say that it was Russia? That's not how this works, man. Again, he said those responsible because the ICC prosecutes people, not countries, you idiots. It's really infuriating, you know. It's really infuriating. People just they are so adamant to see blood, no pun intended. And honestly, I want to say something else. The ICC is being criticized a lot because they only go after African leaders. Really, if you look at their prosecution record, you know, where are most of the investigations? Where are most of the successful prosecutions? It's against African leaders. So a lot of people have looked at that and said it's just basically, you know, a Western institution that they use to attack Africans with. And again, it doesn't mean like everybody, I'm not saying everybody who's been taken to the ICC is, you know, necessarily a nice person. I'm just relaying to you, I'm conveying to you, reporting to you what people criticize it for. Besides the obvious fact that it's fucking useless. You know, my parents both worked at the UN, and the most important thing they ever told me is that the UN is goddamn useless. The ICC is not part of the UN, but it's the same thing, right? I want to show you a tweet from Glenn Greenwald. He says that, and yes, this does matter a lot because if your concern about war crimes only emerges when committed by your country's adversaries, but not those committed by your own country and its allies, your concern isn't real, but just a weapon. And of course, he links to Fallujah, which is great because I feel like that's not talked about enough. It's another example of how, you know, the ICC, the war in Iraq still has repercussions to this day. That, you know, people want to forget about it. Trust me, man. A lot of people do not forget about that. They're still living with the scars from that war. Their children are living with those scars. So again, I'm very, very upset at these pictures coming out of Bucha. I'm really annoyed because I heard the UK ambassador calling it Bucha, and then I started pronouncing it like that, thinking she must have it right because she's going to open an emergency session tomorrow at the UN Security Council, right? But I think it's Bucha. So in any case, I'm really upset by the images coming out of that. It's really horrible. And I think it's very hard to tell what's happening because the media are such damn liars. They have such an incentive to lie and manufacture stories that even if this is true, you know, it's like the boy who cried wolf. They've basically damaged their own credibility, and which is not only, you know, bad for the profession itself, but of course it's insulting to the victims because then no one takes it seriously. Again, I don't know what happened. I think given the track record that NATO has with false flags in Syria and in other countries, in Iraq and so on, I don't know, man. It could really be either one. What some people have said is that you should always look at the motive, like who stands to gain the most, right? That this is a question you should always ask yourself. Does Russia stand to gain anything from this? No, not really. I think they only stand to lose because the whole world is going to turn against them. They're going to lose more. You know, they're going to be hit with more sanctions. They will lose more credibility and so on. At the same time, though, just rationally speaking, every army commits war crimes. Every army. This is a very, very unfortunate reality. Now, this is, again, this is a massacre, whoever did it. And I think what you need to have is an independent investigation. You need to have scientists doing this. And I wish independent was something that's real, that you can actually achieve. I don't know. I don't know. But again, just logically speaking, you look at the track record of the media, what they've reported as true, which, you know, the next day turns out to be nonsense. And remember, that's already happened a couple of times with this war. And then you look at who stands to gain from all of this. It's not Russia. Does that mean Russia didn't do it? I don't know. But just logically speaking, you have to ask these questions. It's the only fair thing to do is to ask these questions. And again, I'm very upset by these images. You know, like at the end of the day, these are people who got killed, man, in a very brutal way, and that's very, very horrible. It's really, really heartbreaking, you know. And I'm not going to show you those pictures because I can't, but also I wouldn't want to anyway because it's not, you know, you shouldn't see them. I mean, when I say you shouldn't see them, I mean like you know, I don't want to just put that in your face without you necessarily actually wanting to see them. Like you should have a content warning about that because it's very, very disturbing. At the same time, if I just can add one last thing, I want to drive a point home here. How right now, you know, they have no problem like plastering the photographs or videos of dead bodies on the street because it suits their narrative. 1 million people died in Iraq. That's just Iraq. I haven't even talked about Syria yet, or Libya, or Afghanistan, right? You have 1 million people who died in Iraq. If you go online now on Instagram or you go on Twitter and you post like photographs of Iraqis killed by Americans or British, you'll get your account locked. Like, you know, people have literally had their account just removed for posting the exact same thing that the media are plastering now about Ukrainians. And why do they do this? Because, again, on the one hand, it's their job to report, but the reason you show this to people is so you can elicit an emotional reaction, right? It's normal. Like, you can't look at that and not have an emotional reaction, not get upset, right? And so my point is that when it came to Iraq and the crimes that were committed by the British and the Americans, they didn't want to elicit emotional reactions. They didn't want people to get upset and know what's happening. And so that's why right now it looks like, you know, like this is the first war crime that's ever happened since World War II. Like, it's so disconnected from reality, and it's really insulting and dehumanizing to, you know, all the victims from the war on terror. And I don't give a shit about people who say, oh, that's whataboutism. Stuff that up your ass. I don't care what you call it. This is hypocrisy. And you are not seriously going to sit there and have people like Joe Biden, you know, the US and the UK talking about war crimes trials when they don't even try their own war criminals who have committed way, way bigger atrocities that we're still living through. This is hypocrisy. I don't care what you say. This is blistering, blinding hypocrisy, staggering hypocrisy. And it's my job to call that out. And the fact that also it's not just a moral double standard, it's a legal double standard. And the media is also showing that double standard in their reporting because they want to humanize the victims in Ukraine. Great, you should do that. They deserve that, to be humanized. But then they want to dehumanize the victims that they helped to cause, right? The wars that they helped to sell, the wars that their governments and their you know, liberal neoconservatives heroes started, and which are still ongoing to this day. They dehumanize them and try to bury them and sweep them under the rug. And that shows you their ill intent and how they literally, you know, they rip away the humanity from the victims in, you know, Iraq, Syria, and so on. And it's nothing new, right? They did the same thing with Vietnam and so on. It's a continuous pattern. It's very nasty. You know, the Russians are saying, hey, let's convene an emergency session at the UN Security Council to talk about this. And then the British are like, no. Let's leave that for Tuesday. What? I thought this is, you know, a crime of epic proportions, and it definitely looks like it. So why don't you want to meet? Again, I'm just speculating here, but I think part of that is to make it look like, you know, we can't have the Ruskies convening this meeting, because then that might actually look like they're trying to address this and clear their name, perhaps. So it has to be us that convene the meeting, so we look like we're the ones in charge, and we are the ones that are, you know, the judge and juror, and going to hold the Russians to account. Again, you know, it could be completely wrong, but that is the vibe that it gives off. Wouldn't you agree? Because, again, the logical thing to do is to convene the meeting. Why not? This is serious. I'm like, you know, no matter who did it, this is serious. Those images are horrific.